Imagine waking up one morning and realizing your city is surrounded. No one gets in, no one gets out. Food stops arriving, water runs low, days pass, then weeks, then months. Your enemy doesn't attack, they don't need to. They just wait while you slowly disappear. Throughout history, some of the most horrifying chapters of war didn't happen on battlefields. They happened behind walls. Today, we're exploring the most brutal sieges in history, moments when entire cities were trapped, starved, bombarded, and erased. Some of these sieges lasted years, some ended civilizations, and some pushed human beings beyond the limits of survival. Let's begin. Jerusalem, 70 AD. The Roman Empire was at its peak, powerful, organized, unstoppable. But the city of Jerusalem had rebelled. Rome responded the only way it knew how. It surrounded the city. At first, the people inside believed they could endure. Jerusalem was fortified, strong walls, loyal defenders. But Rome wasn't interested in rushing. Instead, they built a wall around the entire city, not to keep people out, to keep them in. Food supplies began shrinking, grain ran out, livestock disappeared. Soon, famine consumed the city. Ancient historian Josephus described scenes of desperation so severe they shocked even hardened Roman soldiers. Families fought over scraps. The strong survived, the weak didn't, and Rome waited. After months of starvation, Roman forces breached the walls. What followed was destruction on a scale Jerusalem had never seen. The Second Temple, one of the most sacred sites in Jewish history, was burned. The city was destroyed. Tens of thousands were killed or enslaved. But this wasn't just a military victory. This siege reshaped religion, politics, and the future of an entire region. And it proved something terrifying. Sometimes patience is the deadliest weapon. But Jerusalem was only the beginning. Now imagine this. It's 1941. You live in Leningrad, modern-day St. Petersburg. One morning, the German army surrounds your city. The roads are cut off, the railways destroyed. You expect invasion. Instead, nothing. Hitler made a brutal decision. He wouldn't storm the city. He would starve it. The siege lasted 872 days. That's nearly 2.5 years. Food rations dropped to almost nothing. At one point, civilians were given just 125 grams of bread per day. And that bread, it wasn't pure flour. It was mixed with sawdust and filler. Winter made everything worse. Temperatures fell below -30 degrees Celsius. Water froze. Fuel ran out. People burned furniture to survive. Yet something extraordinary happened. The city refused to surrender. Factories continued producing weapons. Musicians performed symphonies. In 1942, during the height of starvation, Dmitri Shostakovich's Seventh Symphony was performed inside the city, broadcast to the world. It was a message: we are still alive. More than 1 million civilians died, not from bullets, from hunger. And yet Leningrad survived. When the siege finally ended in 1944, the city was devastated, but it had not fallen. History remembers it as one of the longest and most brutal sieges ever endured, but even that was not the worst. For 1,000 years, Constantinople stood as the fortress of the Byzantine Empire. Massive walls, strategic location, nearly impossible to conquer. But in 1453, a 21-year-old Ottoman Sultan named Mehmed II had a vision. He would take the city, and he brought something new: cannons, massive artillery capable of shattering walls that had stood for centuries. For 53 days, the Ottomans bombarded Constantinople, day and night. The defenders repaired walls under torchlight. They were outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched, but they refused to surrender. On May 29, 1453, the walls finally cracked. Ottoman forces stormed the city. The Byzantine Empire, which had lasted over 1,000 years, ended in a single morning. Constantinople fell, and the balance of power in Europe and the Middle East shifted forever. Sometimes a siege doesn't just destroy a city, it ends an era. Now we travel to 1258. Baghdad was once the center of the Islamic Golden Age, a city of scholars, science and culture. Then the Mongols arrived, led by Hulagu Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan. The Mongols surrounded the city and demanded surrender. Baghdad refused. It was a fatal mistake. The siege lasted only 2 weeks, but it was devastating. Mongol forces broke through and unleashed destruction on a massive scale. Libraries, some of the greatest collections of knowledge in the world, were destroyed. The House of Wisdom, a symbol of learning and innovation, vanished. The Tigris River reportedly ran dark from ink and blood. Baghdad, once one of the greatest cities on earth, was shattered. The Islamic Golden Age declined soon after. A single siege changed the intellectual history of the world, and the Mongols moved on. Now, modern history. Sarajevo, 1992. Europe again. The city was surrounded by Bosnian Serb forces. For nearly 4 years, 1,425 days, Sarajevo endured sniper fire, shelling and isolation. It became the longest siege in modern warfare. Civilians crossing streets risked being targeted. Food and electricity were limited. Children grew up knowing only war, yet life continued. Schools operated in basements. Concerts were held underground. People adapted to survive. The siege finally ended in 1996. Over 10,000 civilians had died. This wasn't ancient history. This was the 1990s. Sieges weren't relics of medieval warfare. They were still happening. Here's what makes a siege different. On a battlefield, death can be instant. In a siege, it's slow. It's hunger that creeps in day by day. It's the silence before the next bombardment. It's watching supplies disappear and hope shrink with them. A siege doesn't just attack a city. It attacks the mind. It forces ordinary people into impossible choices. From Jerusalem to Leningrad, from Constantinople to Baghdad, from Sarajevo to the modern world, history shows us something uncomfortable. The most powerful weapon in war isn't always the sword, or the cannon, or the bomb. Sometimes it's time. If you want more powerful stories like this, stories that shaped civilizations in just moments, subscribe to History in Minutes, because here we don't just tell history, we bring it to life, and the next story might change the way you see the world.